Hi, I'm Bill Davidson. I'm the guest host for Eric Rhoads as he travels the world this week. And I continue with the stellar lineup I've had this week. And today we have an incredible special treat. We got one of the top plein air painters in the country. And I would know because I painted with a lot of people and I've seen this guy paint, and it is amazing. Um, as one of the top plein air painters, what I found really unique about him is he's very authentic. If you go out and you paint with him, he nails the atmosphere, and he is going to provide a really, really important lesson. So stay with us today, and welcome, Jonathan.
Great to be here. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate
And
it.
so, what are you going to show us today?
Well, I'm going to just kind of work through a 12 by 16 painting here in the studio, like I typically do all the time. And I'll be talking about the things that us as artists often sort of address about composition and value and color and all those things. But I really want to talk about something that's been important to me lately, which is gesture, which is a term you don't always hear in painting. It kind of comes a little bit from the figurative world of drawing and that sort of figure drawing background that some people have, and I have a little bit of it from a long time ago. So I'll be talking about that to some degree, but how that ties into what I do with my paintings now, it's kind of cool. It's a nice little relationship with composition and value. It's another way to look at it.
Well, this is going to be a great treat. And again, folks, this is one of the top plein air painters in the country. So stay tuned for this. And so let's get this show started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhoads. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhoads.
Okay, I'm welcoming back John shortly, but there's first a few things I have to talk about. First, the prize for today is the Easy Brush Clip. So when you're doing your comments, what I want you to do is tell us where you're from, and that'll enter you to see if you can win the brush clip. Also, yesterday's show, Gail from South Hadley, she won Eric's money selling art book. So to claim your prize, don't forget, just go to ASL at streamlinepublishing.com. And today, for everybody, we have a gift. You can download the free art book of 97artsecrets.com/free. And also, don't forget to subscribe at Art School Live on YouTube and also at Eric Rhoads on Instagram. Now, we're going to get back to Jonathan and let him show us some of the most unique things you'll probably learn this week. All right, Jonathan, I'm just going to let you run with it, and I'll ask questions as we go. How's that?
Okay. So I've turned my camera here to my setup, which is the plein air box on a workstation desk here, and here to the side I have a painting that I worked on earlier this week, and it's probably 70% done, I would say, maybe give or take a little bit. So this is going to be sort of my reference to redo again here and show you this concept I sort of like to think about while painting of gesture. And when you say, well, what does that really mean? From my days of being lucky enough to study some of this in college and having a background in some of the academic courses of figure drawing and things like that, it's sort of a holdover that I didn't really realize till later on in life, that all those things I learned about through charcoal and pencil drawing, they taught me about things like the weight of a line, or the the strength of something, or how objects sort of come together and where they meet and where they are not meeting, kind of where the air is around them, where they're lighter. So that's really played a lot into how I apply the paint from start to finish. So, and that ties into the composition, into the value structure and the color, and a lot of it is related in the form of, like, shadows can be very heavy and dark and deep, and I try to make my brush strokes in their action relate to that, so that that's where the expression and livelihood should come from, I think. So, um,
Wow, that's
yeah,
really interesting. I'm really looking forward to that. And I
yeah,
just
yeah.
want,
You know what? I had taken some, courses in figure drawing that uh, Honoré Dormier was someone who was like I was sort of one of my instructors had me follow or to study closely, and they're really these cool character drawings, and they're gesture drawings, they're line drawings where you just keep moving your hand and you keep building a weight wherever things are leaning on something or wherever they're um, wherever they're touching, and then if you had a hand up in the air, it would be very light, and so I'm trying to do that with the
oh,
paintbrush.
well, this will be great. Let's get started. And so everybody knows, Jonathan graduated from Lade from art school, and he's, as I say, he's one of the top plein air painters in the country.
Okay.
All right, let's rock and roll.
All right. So I won't go too much into my palette. I have a pretty limited palette out here today. I do use more colors at times. I have a couple grays, a warm and a cool gray, and titanium white, a cool yellow, and a warm yellow. I have a warm red, not really any other reds. Raw sienna and a deep, a sort of a deep burnt sienna brown here, ultramarine and cerulean. So what I like to do is I look at the beginnings of the painting as a drawing. I think many artists think of these things in the same way. It's kind of what we call the block-in, right? We hear that term a lot. But for me, this becomes the gesture drawing, okay? So I'm just mixing up a dark mixture here of a little bit of ultramarine and then some burnt sienna, and I'm making a big puddle down here. I'll give you a quick look at it like that. Okay, I'll come up.
I love the fact that you're telling us what you're doing. But
Yeah,
this
so I'm making this big puddle of color. Now, I liken this to, like charcoal drawing, like that. That's this stage of the painting to me. And I think it is for everybody, but this is kind of where the gesture comes in. So if we look at this, my reference over here, this setup of boats, which I love to paint. If anyone knows my work, I love painting the seascapes and coastal scenes. So over here, we have this really shadowed, deep, dark, uh, pier and dock over here. And then there's this boat snugged up against it really tight. And all of these little boats are sort of linked into each other with all of these great shapes and color bouncing around, right? So in the beginning, I don't really go into the color. I'm just sort of making this drawing. But, there's one way to approach it where I can kind of be really like, I can kind of put some stuff down like this. But if you think about it gesturally, I kind of just like to start working like this, okay? So I'm really moving my wrist and my hand up and down sideways. So over here, there's these pylons, right? And they actually have a reflection too. So just sort of indicating that. Not too worried about detail at all here.
and this keeps you nice, gets you nice, loose, and expressive right at the start, right?
It does. And what's interesting about it is that you'd say, well, you're going to paint over it. And I am. I'm going to paint over it. So what is it, what do these brushstrokes mean now? Well, some of them come through. Some of it, I don't like to paint over my darks. I try not to as much as I can. I try to leave them thin and dark. And those gestural marks in here, they might pop through in places, but they're also a guideline for me later to lay the color gestural strokes where there's a thick, juicy piece of paint that people like to see. Like that's what, and I like to see it. That's where I'll be, thinking about it. Sort of a guidepost for me. And speaking of guideposts, that's another thing about thinking this gesturally is that all of these marks are like signposts that lead the viewer around. So I
Well,
have this dark shape I'll carry this right across for you to show you. There's a boat over here. There's a boat over here that has a dark sort of shape to it and color.
well, I love the way that's all connected.
Yeah. So yeah, and then they shoot up. They have cabins, so then there's something like that. And I mean, look at how just loose that is, right?
Wow, I love that.
These windows here are kind of cool. Like this, and I'm moving a little more rapidly than I might do, but what happens is if you can get away from kind of bearing down, we all learn how to write, like this. And if we don't even get into art until we're like in our 20s, or and then if you get into it later in life, you're stuck with this in your head of kind of like that's how we do things, like this. Whereas it took me many, many years to figure out to just kind of get back on the brush like this and really move it around. Move your wrist around, move your arm around. Sort of a contact sport. I know in some of my classes, I'll even be in here, like you'll hear the furrow of my brush like hitting the canvas and making scrapes on this early phase. And I always say in my workshops, I love it when I can hear things going on.
Wow. I love this. I don't think I've ever seen this done by anybody this way. Although I've watched you paint or painted with you, I don't have time to sit there and really watch you paint while we're in the process. This is really amazing.
Oh.
Because that's a complicated scene and you're really simplifying it.
In this stage I am, but I have a background in being a pretty particular, artist or rent. I used to do things with a little tiny brush, and that's great. I still love to bear down on a painting later on and get some good for lack of a better word, I guess, detail, right? So
Yeah.
So I still like that because I think the combination is what for me makes it energized, because there's some of this and there's some of that. There's some of this, this sort of very loose stuff, and then I can use some of those, lucky enough to have those skills of drawing and some rendering to some degree that I can pull in and really refine an area and make it a little more important,
Well, I find this, and I also find because you're keeping it thin in the dark areas, that keeps light from hitting a real thick, dark patch of paint and starting to not lose its darkness. Correct?
Right. It's really kind of nice because the highlights, to me they build up a lot, and I'm pushing into the canvas right now. I'm really grinding this paint into this hard. This is a panel, a linen covered panel. So
Right.
and it's toned. Like I just
Right.
tone it with a light wash of something and it dries, so I should have said that in the beginning. But that's how that starts. It's not white. White's kind of daunting to begin with, so. Not that I don't sometimes start with white, but for this exercise I didn't.
Right.
But anyway, the lights really build up, and in this phase, I'm really pushing the paint into this canvas, into the surface. And later on, I'm almost barely touching it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
That's a great tip, because I do know that you see paintings sometimes where the dark is so thick that it's catching the gallery light and it's not dark anymore.
Yeah, yep. And I'm another thing I'm doing here is I use Galkid as a fast drying medium. There's others out there. Liquid is another one. I haven't used that many years, but I did have a background in acrylics for a while. So I like using Galkid because I do like the fact that it starts to tack up pretty quickly. When plein air painting, it's really not going to be. It's going to remain pretty open. You're not going to get too much drying, but it does tack up a little bit, which to me brings in another form of art that I love. I'm trying to get back into a little bit, and I just love what people are doing with it now. Is watercolor, because to me, when I have a little bit of tackiness developed here as I move forward in the painting, I can do dry brush over this.
Yeah.
And, just really loosely drag the paint, and that's a gesture too. And that's that lightness that I was talking about. So the weight of your stroke, like I'm being pretty heavy right now by my force, right?
And then when you get farther into it, you're just going to barely touch to lay that light on, right?
Yes. Yep.
Real soft touch.
Yeah, and I mean these gesture drawings, which are basically sketches, right? Like you kind of have this quick line, you get the figure down really quick in 15 seconds or 1 minute. That's kind of how they instructed. And And it's really cool because you're kind of forced to get the essence down. You know, call it impressionism if you want. You know, it's an impression of what you're seeing, not a long study. And that's it was really helpful for me. Some other things, like sometimes I like to use like things like the foam brushes. These are really cool. Like, you know, I think a lot of people like to, or some people like to use squeegees, right? But I can start to carve out some areas here. Like if we're looking at the reference painting here, you can see I get a little bit of light. I can drag in here, you know, like that. So now I'm making that shape.
I love that because I think people are better at carving out shapes like that than actually trying to paint to them.
You know, I think you're right, and I don't even think you'd really realize it until you do it. You know, that how effective it can be, and it is sort of a nice way to get to your drawing, really. You know.
Yeah. But you know what I really like? I like the fact that I can see all the big shapes right
Yeah,
away. What
yeah,
you did, you know?
yeah. It really is. You know, it's kind of, it's already formed. If I can form you know, something that looks like, um, you know, the objects that we're looking at or the objects I want them to be. If I can do that early, that's pretty successful. Like that means I'm moving in a good direction. I mean, there's fantastic artists out there who, you know, they kind of work monochromatically, and they're really pushing these great stages right here. You know, they're pushing this stage. You know, like right over here, there's a spot of light. I'll be hitting it later. I'll even bring in like, you know, my paper towel here, and I'll get a little bit more off. So there's a spot in there. You know, there's a lot of things I've skipped here about composition, like, you know, trying not to center things too much. You know, I think there's a lot of information about that out there that, you know, once you get off of those kind of things with how to set up your composition, this is more about the application. Like,
Yes.
how do you get it in? You know, I don't hear that talked about a lot. Like, how do you make sure you're moving about, shifting your arm position, you know, and moving your wrist around, those kind of things. Another important thing for me is I use strictly flat brushes.
Right.
And I actually use synthetic flat brushes, which are more geared towards acrylics and even watercolors because they're very crisp. I'll show you a new one. They're very crisp and they have like a chiseled edge on the end. So as opposed to a bristle brush, which kind of fluffs up and gets chunky, and it has its own great effects, which I love. But these help me sculpt things in a very angular way. Okay, like squares and rectangles and triangles. This helps me block things. Again, back to that term block in, helps me block in shapes because it has the shape built in. Show you really cool. Yep.
Well, what I love about this is, I mean, I can always see all kinds of looseness and gesture work already in the block in.
Yeah, I mean, like a flat brush. I'll do something really quick here. Like a flat brush, I'm just going to get some gray paint. This is, by the way, foam core. If to practice this stuff, you don't have to blow through canvases and kind of, you know, feel like you're wait. Grab foam core and practice this stuff. You know, you don't have to worry about it too much. So that's what I have here, a little piece of foam core just to show you. Like the flat brush, if I want to draw a boat in a harbor, like let's say it's far away, I can do it by trying to outline it and then fill it in. But, you know, to me, a boat's really just, you know, here's a hull that's flat. Now it's a rectangle. Doesn't, you know, here's your cabin, and here's a fly bridge, which is like the top part. And then all you're doing, and the rest of it is just sort of cutting in a triangle in the front, a little bit of angle in the back, maybe with that flat edge of that flat brush, you have a mast or something like that. Maybe cut that back. So, and then maybe just some reflection and a little more. So
Wow. That was very simplified.
that's what the flat brush does for me, you know, and I don't have to worry about the rendering as much.
Wow.
Okay?
That really simplified it. Thank
Yeah, I
you,
mean,
John.
like that's a little. It could be like a sailboat in the back. We just have one little, be like two rectangles, then a big thing like that. And then you just have to kind of carve in a bow shape, So
Wow, really?
yeah.
I
So
find that very
that's why I love flat brushes. It's all I use in different sizes, 2 all the way up to 10 or 12. So let me get back to the painting here.
Yeah, I love the way this looks already.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So I'm still gonna keep with my darker areas, but I'm actually gonna be moving a little color in, maybe a little earlier than I typically would. But so I have these beautiful green hulls here on these boats, right? But they're
Right.
all a little different, so I got to make sure I don't give them too much of the same quality of color and value. I'm still dark right now, I'm not worried about the lights and the brightness
Right.
uh, that casts through. So I just have like some of my lemon yellow and a little bit of ultramarine. I warm it up with some of my my burnt sienna that helps it. But again, with the flat brush, and this brush is getting a little gnarly for me, but it's okay. Like there's right here, this hull. That's not a complicated boat component. To me, it's a rectangle. Maybe I'll do it twice. So that's one rectangle, right?
Right.
Now I got another hull. It's a little different color. Maybe I'll bring in some cerulean to kind of augment that away from that green. Something a little different. Again, it's catching more shadow on the back. And this one's maybe a little bit of a deeper, I've got this boat here, this white one, and I'm kind of painting over it. And I don't get too worried about that. I always say to people that you always have to paint a little bit over something, a little bit back over. That's where you start to work edges towards the end of the painting, and you're making some corrections. If you make it 2 or 3 corrections to get your object right, that's fine. That's cool, and expect it. Like paint across something. You're going to fix it later. Just don't worry about it in the early stages because you got plenty of time to correct it. If you're doing it like 8 to 10 times to correct that one spot, then you run into some trouble, I think.
Okay. Yeah, your paint starts mixing together, getting a little muddy.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what's interesting to me here too is all of your I want to point this out for everybody to see this. Each one of those holes is a different size shape, and you made it a different color. And
sort of 1, 2, 3 here, right? Like these 3
yeah,
green ones. Yep.
you got a big pop of air one,
Yep.
a big one.
Yep. And while this color is out, this is the time when now back to the gesture part. These are big gestural things going on here with their shapes, with their power. Where they hit the water is a weighty, that's where all the weight is. All of the stuff going on in the stanchions and the poles, that they're just touching air. There's no friction. The friction comes at the water line. Like that's
Right.
where these things are sitting in there. That's where the darkest areas need to be. So that's a value discussion in many cases, to just think in those terms. At the water line, you want it darker almost all the time. But to me, it's a weight discussion. It's a discussion of this gesture and force that's happening at that point. So while I have these colors out, I can scrape in just like I did with the brownish sepia color earlier. I can just scrape in this stuff. So I know I want reflections later. And honestly, my original reference photo probably had a little bit of ripple on the water. I'll tend to tone that down and go for more of a calmer area with a little bit more reflection. Just for interest's sake.
Right. I hear you. Yeah, what a great look.
Yeah, I'm going to grab a little bit of my cool gray. Tell you the grays, you can mix your own, which is wonderful. It's a great, you kind of need to know how to do all that stuff. But if you have a couple grays on your palette, especially here in New England, it gets you to where you're going a little bit quicker because there's so much of that coloration around here in our buildings and, especially our coastline. So here it is with, a little bit of cool gray, a little touch of burnt sienna too. And I'm again making some gestural shapes here of what these cabins are. And what's great about all this, calamity going on in a harbor scene is that you don't really know what all the stuff is, you know? It's just so much in there that you don't really have to worry about
Well,
what is that exact little thing, you know?
and that's kind of when you look at it, I mean, your eyes are only going to focus on one thing. So that's really the feel of the painting. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, and like this maybe the main character here is this guy up front, right? So I'll come in here with a little bit of cerulean blue back into my gray mixture. So you can see, I'll point down quick. So there's like, I have a gray mixture going on here. But this
Right.
is all we have so far, is just this.
See, I love the use of the grays. I think that's critical so that you don't end up with a garish painting. Sliding those grays in there really help.
Yeah, and I know you have some great like processes for doing the grays. I'm not that's probably a great thing for people to check out and then apply some of this gestural stuff to it, because I'm not really going over my, this gray is going to happen here. I'm not really doing that. I'm kind of thinking about it to myself, and doing it on the fly, right?
Right.
As
Right.
opposed to practicing a direct like order of operations, right?
Right.
Which is helpful. That's really helpful to learn it.
All right. We have about 25 minutes left, so keep rolling.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, these windows on this boat are pretty important too, because they become other dark shapes too.
All right. So here's a question for you. Where is
Yeah.
this scene from, Jonathan? That's from one of the viewers.
This scene is from Rock Harbor in Orleans, Massachusetts. I frequent there quite a bit. I do some work in the gallery out there, so I love the harbor. We have many events there throughout the year. There's several events and plenty of events, and it's just always the tide really goes up and down quite a bit, so you have a lot of change. And the boats are pretty old and salty for the most part, which is cool. I like that.
Now, what you're going to do when you're going to finish this by jumping to the other painting, is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna, I'm probably about 70 or 80% through on this one, and this one I probably am only going to get maybe like 40% into, and then
Yeah.
we'll do a little switch at some point, so I
I'd
can
love
get
that.
the highlights. Yeah,
Because I tell you why, because we don't get to see many people get to finish a demo. So
yeah,
that's
it's hard.
real
Yeah,
plus.
not a lot of time, right? And
No.
if I did a little 6x8, it probably maybe could have worked right through, and
Yeah, but I'd rather see the finish than the mid part, because this is, I think, the beginning and the end are really critical.
yeah, I mean, in the using gestural strokes through the middle is important too. I do think they sort of really shine at the beginning and at the end,
Yeah, so you probably, let's see.
So I really try to not to think about the brushstrokes as filling in, like you're filling in an area. It's more they actually, how they're applied is actually, they actually become directional. So all those little lines you see in a brushstroke that you kind of like, that people are attracted to, they're actually pointing the eye in a direction.
Yeah.
So as much as the object itself is pointing you in a direction, so is the substance of paint is pointing you in a direction, and that depends on how it's applied.
I love that.
I never really thought of that too much about, because I always used to be I was filling in a lot, draw an
Well,
object, fill in the blank, right? Fill in the
yeah. And I notice also, like the reflections, they're all going down, which is really how they look.
Yeah, I would say in the early phases, a lot of the reflections are going to emulate the up and down of these objects that's happening.
Right.
Even though there's some that go side to side, but later on I can do the more horizontals.
Yeah, and that'll sit those reflections down, won't it? Make them look underwater.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. It kind of blends them a little bit.
What size canvas are you working on, Jonathan?
This is a 12 by 16, and so is this. It looks a little smaller because it's set off to the side here, but they're both 12 by 16. And the brush size I'm using is a number 6. Here is
Okay.
basically what I've been using the whole time. Yeah,
Wow, wow. I'm glad you told us that, because that looked like a smaller brush.
Yeah, no, it's a number 6. It's not bad. I mean, I could use, I could probably get even more expressionistic if I had a bigger brush, and um, this is a good. This keeps me like honest as far as rendering a little bit and keeping
Yeah, yeah.
my so without. I mean, I'm not very good with a palette knife, and I absolutely love what I'm seeing people do out there with palette knives. And you know, I wish I honestly, if I had time to do everything, that'd be on one of my lists of things to try to get better at. I'll use one occasionally for some scraping and whatnot.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as far as the application to get that thickness throughout, I'm not really good at it. Um, I like my skies to be airy and light
Right.
almost all the time. So, because I've got these big, heavy objects sitting the man-made things in my paintings are pretty robust and heavy. One might
Yeah, yeah.
have that comment. So, I like my skies and my water to be sort of light and airy. I mean, when you think about like Edgar Payne and Carlson, like all of the things we kind of hear that, well, you have the sky plane is going to be your lightest area generally, and your ground plane will be your mid-tone, your number 5, like your
Right.
middle area, and then your trees or your vertical objects will be your darkest generally. Now
Right.
they catch sunset light and stuff. Things change, but that's the general rule. Well, that applies to the gesture too. So the lightest, the airiest part gets maybe the most sensitive stroke.
Right, right. I
The
hear
dark
you.
areas can get the force.
Now you got about 15 minutes left. So how you doing?
Good. Good.
And then let us know when you need to change out your palette. Your
Yeah,
color.
yeah. I could probably, now that this darkness is in here, pretty good. You know what I'll do very fast is at a point like this, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I would, if I get some titanium white and some lemon yellow, and I'll do this really fast and then I'll break to wipe my palette down. Um, a little bit of lemon yellow and a little bit of cerulean, I can start to, it's almost kind of greenish, which is okay. So I can kind of lightly just scrub in
Wow.
a sky like this. And I'm covering up all of these poles and things, kinda. Some of them I am, some of them I'm not. I'll come back in and fix those up. Well, I did over here anyway.
Yeah, that's great. I love the fact that you did both. You already have one almost completed, and then you started. That's a great lesson.
So anyway, that little mixture I just made, if I go with a little bit more cerulean and a little touch of raw sienna and a little more cerulean, I should show that. So I'm just going a little bit darker so that
Yeah,
down here,
right.
like
It's
the
not as
sky,
light as the sky,
yeah.
and then richer in color.
But you can see I'm going up and down, left and right.
Yeah.
It's like, and boy, this stuff here is already tacky, so I can almost drag the idea of a reflection right across here. And see how it sits,
Love
breaks
that.
up. That breaks it up automatically for me because it's starting to get a little bit tacky. Not garish tacky, but sticky.
All right. So we got a question.
Yeah.
What is the paint storage at your mixing palette?
Yeah. So this is a kind of a cool thing I've been using lately. Can I say a name?
Sure.
Yeah, it's called Box and Paint. It's a company out of Massachusetts. Kind kind of just started up. So BOXNPAINT. I think you find them all over social media and everything. It's a cool thing. It has a cover, so I can cover this and put it into my into refrigerator or
Yeah,
freezer.
yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Comes off like that. Comes in a little. It was a little one, so you can have a little one that has some different colors in it. So it kind of keeps me more organized because I'm not good at keeping things straight. You can see all my junky paint here.
Yeah.
You can see all the paint on my box. I'm not the cleanest guy in the world when it comes to the painting process. So it helps me get better with that.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, you're getting down to about 10 minutes.
All right, so I'm gonna wipe my palette off here really quick.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Take your time there. We're going to go and check out Realism Live at realismlive.com, where we have an incredible realism coming up. So let's run that. At Realism Live, the great
Welcome to Realism Live.
Welcome to Realism Live.
Welcome to Realism Live.
This is my lesson for Realism Live.
Welcome to today's lesson.
Welcome to my class.
I hope you enjoy this demo. Let's get started.
You have an opportunity to go to an art conference online, and this is it. For the next 3 days, we're here to make you better and to inspire you. You're going to experience massive growth this week. This is the best possible opportunity to really push yourself to the next level. You can do this.
I absolutely loved it.
More than met any expectations.
I keep finding myself going, this is truly amazing.
I learn something new every time.
It's therapy.
Just when you think it can't get any better, it really does. It just keeps getting better.
This experience has been a game changer, not only for your art, but for one's life.
People who can't travel or afford to travel or go to workshops out there are able to learn from all these different artists right from our own studios and homes.
What you're going to get over the next few days will blow your mind, but it's also going to take you further than you ever thought.
There's landscape painting, there's portraits, there's still life. Like, I'm getting a little bit of everything, and I am very excited about that.
You guys are giving me more tools to put in my toolbox.
I appreciate certain things on a whole new level.
I get all these great artists teaching me all these new things, but I get to sleep in my own bed tonight.
So many fantastic artists, master artists who are sharing all their expertise.
The artists, what they bring is just shocking. It's the whole day just flew through, and it's so fast because it's so much to take in.
You have the best of the best out there. So many of these people you can't even get to. You cannot get to them.
They all have so much to offer and everything's so different. Everybody today has been amazing, all in their own different ways. I learned so much.
Every single artist I have an aha moment from. I learned something from everybody today, and I've been painting for 36 years.
I just loved it. I've never done this before. It's so new to me. It's been class.
And new friends too. There's people here that I have become very good friends with.
To meet other people in this. So the total immersion is definitely the way to go.
Really incredible to see people connect with them.
Go to every breakout room. Talk to everybody. Try every single thing. Even if you think you can't do it, put that aside.
It just has been a real lifesaver through this whole time. I have just incredibly appreciated all you've done.
Okay, that's a really great event, and I would recommend you going to that. And today I can give you a discount code where you can get 10% off the price. Just type in the word DAVIDSON, which is my last name. So go do it. And it'll be great fun for you and a great way to learn. Now we're going to go back to Jonathan and let Jonathan go back to where he was. Thank you, Jonathan. How are we looking?
Okay, doing all right. So I switched off the what I was working on earlier is now over here to the right, and the one that I had begun a few days ago is now taking kind of the center here, and I'm kind of jumping towards the end where I'm going to put the brights on here that really kind of get some color to pop through here. And really quick, I did while we had the break, I pulled up. There's my reference photo.
Oh, that's great. That's very nice.
So, maybe I can even, if I do this.
Well, we're getting down to about 7 minutes. So.
Oh, that's okay. We're doing good. So I've switched down to like a number 4 brush. Okay. So I've come down a little bit. So really, all I'm going to do is I'm coming in. I start to use titanium white in like the last 30% to 20% of my painting, and that's when I bring in my my reds, my yellows, especially around the harbors, because we have these beautiful things. Like I've already started it here a little bit, like this buoy here. Big sort of orange guy hanging off of this, like right there, and then there's more of a reddish one tucked in back in here. And while I have that color out, like I said before, I can drag down really quick with a gesture stroke, drag down that color. And here I can do it again. See the orange?
I see how these gesture strokes really are adding energy and expressiveness to your painting.
Well, thanks. Yeah, hopefully that's over here I can put another red one, but you know what? It's going to have a little bit of ultramarine and some burnt sienna to darken it up because it's tucked away. It's not catching the light. So that's like right there. Okay.
You're bringing this to life right in front of me.
Yeah, and in the meantime, there's always things at these harbor. What's good about studying these places is I start to remember things like, okay, there's always like an orange bib hanging somewhere off of inside the cabin, like an odd item like that. There's always these blue barrels that sit around. I don't really see any of these pictures, but I can put in some cerulean blue into those areas. And a life ring. One of these boats in that reference photo has a life ring in it, so I can kind of I'm making a circle with a flat brush with sharp edges, so it's so there's one of those rings that they have if there's ever an issue, right? So, and I can get some of my darker color, and I can even get a little bit more definitive. This crisp edge of the flat brush helps me do these lines. Okay, I'm not worried about. I can shake a bit too sometimes, so I can come down. I'll squiggle it all over the place. This is just dropping it like this.
Wow, love that. So, what's your website, Jonathan, so people could see more of your work and pick up some other tips from you?
Yeah, so it's JonathanMcPhillips.com, my name.com. And, it's kind of a good hub for the various galleries that I'm in from, Cape Cod out to Maine, down to Watch Hill, Rhode Island, and other events too, workshops and things like that. I'll list it on there. I try to update it as much as I can. And it's sort of a good hub for all of those things, to find out info. There's a nice newsletter on there. I try to do as much as I can with that. Should do more, but yeah.
I love this, that you're not over rendering those things. You're just putting them on and there's spots of color going in the right place and the right value. That's what's incredible.
Yeah, and I had the benefit of letting this set up a little bit so that the paint's really sitting on top. Like right here, I'm even brightening that spot more. And it's just a rectangle.
Right.
With a little bit of an angle to it. That's all
right.
It is. And then this side here is just a stroke down with the flat brush. And then the top up here, again, just that.
Yeah, and I mean, you could apply this in anything, not just boats. This is really something that you could use. It's going to change the way I paint trees and rocks, I think.
Oh, sure. I mean, like if you try to draw a building, sometimes, there's your roof. It's just an angle. you know.
Yeah.
All it is the flat brush turned at an angle. So that's why it's, cuts to the chase a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like I can even at this point really brighten up. Let's give this, like right here, this boat's catching some nice light right there. It's the same light that's hitting that buoy, right?
Yeah.
So that, and then while I'm there, pull it down into that
Beautiful.
spot.
Okay, we just got a couple of minutes left here, Jonathan. What?
Yeah. I mean, I could, kind of play around with this for a long time and keep doing these little bits. Maybe there's something up here that maybe the sky area needs a little bit of color. Like there's some flags hanging around up there or something. So that kind of stuff, can go in. And yeah, there's really, could the painting be left alone as it is now? Possibly. That's always the question, right? Right? You never know when to stop. Sometimes you have to stop and think about it for a day or two, right?
Or a friend comes up behind you and tells you to stop.
That's true too. Yeah, that's always helpful, isn't it? You could use that sometimes in the studio. Oh, this pylon over here is catching a little bit of light. So I can see that. That helps.
Amazing.
Shows you that it's coming from the right side there, right? Yeah.
Oh, this thing's already come to life, and you did it so quick. That's amazing.
Well, again, I like to say it's me. I will say the brush helps a lot, and the brush, and also just sort of letting go a little bit, which is hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to come around to not writing on not writing on our paintings,
Yeah,
like
or
we're
rendering
filling out a
everything.
document. It's a whole different process holding this implement,
Yeah, and I notice you're holding it at the back part of it too. You're not choked up on it real close.
Yeah, back here is pretty good about this part. I mean, sometimes you can even, to practice, just stick it in your palm and like right there, and then you can grab it there, and that's where you should be.
Oh, this is fabulous. What a demo.
Put in a little line here.
And you
Oh yeah, that's kind of nice. Lines kind of connect these boats. Again, that's the flat brush edge doing that for me. Yeah, it's fun. It's energetic,
That looks really great.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
And you did it in such a short amount of time. I love the way you did that. I love
Remember,
the look. It looks to me like that's what it looks like when you naturally look at it. And you're a master at capturing atmosphere. So I can already see atmosphere in the back behind those boats. It looks amazing.
We carry our experiences. Thank you. We carry our experiences. I remember an artist once coming up to me and telling me, you might remember who he was, who said, "Hey, you got to darken that foreground water. That's too light." So, you can you come in here. So sometimes this, something like this helps to, give even like that muddy green color, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, well, and it's creating depth and it's putting a more intense color up front, which
Yeah, a little bit deeper color. It's not,
Yeah.
the chrome is not too high. It's just a little bit deeper. And maybe I can soften a little bit with my paper towel. And
I love that.
so that now makes it go like this instead of this flat up. It makes it go towards that boat, right?
Right.
And then the sky comes up above us like that. So yeah, I mean, this is
really. And so you would just keep working on this and adding little touches and working.
Yeah, probably not too much more. I don't.
Oh no, I think you're on it. You've
Oh,
already got the feel.
Yeah, here's some nice cerulean blue that adds another element of color to somewhere over here. Like that travels. You do want to have things connect. Like the darks kind of connect and they pattern across. And I was always taught, another thing I was very happy about to learn studying this in a formal way was, I was taught about passages through a painting. You want to create passages to get through.
Oh,
and that's another way of explaining composition, right?
Yeah. Completely different way. All right, Jonathan. So for everybody, what an excellent job he did. And once again, he's one of the top plein air painters in the country. And go check out his website, jonathanmcphillips.com. And we really appreciate what you did today, Jonathan. It was amazing.
I love doing it. Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Yeah, and for those of you who want to check mine out, it's billdavidson.biz. I have like 4 videos out there with Streamline. And if you want to check out some of my videos, I hope you do. There's Painting Simplified, which is shown up. Landscape Painting Secrets. Painting with Energy, which is a European scene. And Landscapes Reinvented, my latest video, where I go a lot into the grays and how to really work them through, which has made painting a lot faster for me and for a lot of my students. So thank you, Jonathan. Everybody stay tuned for next week. And,
thank you, Bill.
Or this week. Tomorrow, I've got Deborah Hughes coming up. She's also fabulous. So that'll be a real treat. And I think we're going to check in on Eric Rhoads and find out where he is.
Where am I? I'm in Stockholm. We went to the Zorn House in Mora for a couple of days. We also went to the Carl Larson studio and home today. And now we took the train back to Stockholm. It's cold, it snowed here, and we are going to start the fine art tour tonight. Start with a cocktail party, and then for the next 4 days, we're going to be seeing the art in Stockholm, visiting artist studios like Nick Holm. And we're going then to Madrid, doing more of the same. I'll check in then. See you. Where in the world am I? Well, I'm in Drottningholm, which is the palace of the current king of Sweden. We have a private tour here this morning for 1 hour. He actually is here, and so we have to get out soon. But I thought I'd say hello from the king's palace. Where am I? I'm in a special exhibit in the Sorolla House, and this is his exhibit on plein air painting. Couldn't be a better day to come here. This shows his plein air studies that he's done all over Spain, and it is just magnificent. See you soon. Where am I? I'm in the Prado, all alone, all empty. And that's a special fine art connoisseur trip where we were able to get into the Prado privately. Not allowed to take pictures, so I'm sneaking these. Bye.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. What a great, great, great demo by one of the top plein air painters in the country. And also, stay tuned tomorrow. I'm going to have Deborah Hughes, and she is one fabulous painter, and she's going to do an incredible job talking about color tomorrow and really pull it through. So tomorrow, tune in at the same time. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again. That'll be my last show for the week. So have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this, because I surely did.